Now we're ready to go back to the demonstration. Again, we are at the view submission screen and we're in queue, right? I'm gonna hit F5 and we probably should be ready for review status now. So now you can see that we're ready for review and we have different results in our submission. We have for our CSIS submission, 8 passed records, 14 rejected. For our student program submission, 11 passed, 20 rejected. And then for our student information, 17 passed and 3 rejected, okay? So before we come down and review the results, let's look at our filters. We can filter and narrow our selection by file type. So if I only wanted to look for student information files, I can use the file type and only student information files submitted will be able to review. Now, depending on the level of your account, if you're an LEA admin, you will be able to see all the uploads by any user in your LEA. However, if you just have a CALPADS user account, you can only see your uploads. So we'll go back to all. So you can see I have an admin account because I can see a submission from Kyron, colleague of mine here at CSIS, an excellent trainer extraordinaire. Then the reporting LEA, you can see that it's grayed out because my account is associated to CSIS Training Berkeley. And then you filter for date. So this is important when you've gone away from CALPADS. Perhaps you've gone on vacation or you're trying to reconcile records that are missing from CALPADS. You want to make sure that they were included in a file that was uploaded. You have to look at the uploaded from dates. So it's about a 1 week default ratio, but I can go back several months. So you can see that I have many more files to choose from because I expanded my upload dates. I don't want to look at all those files though. We also have the file list, right? So these are current files. But if I've archived any, I can go back and review those. And I can select all to have current and archive files. Then we have file status. We have processing in queue. We reviewed all these, but if you want to look at a file by status, you can look them up. We have our different submitters. These are all the submitters for my LEA. I can look up just Kyron submissions if I'd like, or Marshall's. Marshall is another trainer here at CSIS, technically gifted. He does all the training. Him and Sly do the recording and the audio. They set it all up. So as I talk to you now, very casually, one of those two will have the arduous job of editing this video. So I just want to say hi, Slime, and hi, Marshall. Okay, anyway. Now, available in is not self-explanatory, or is it? So when you see revision in progress, it will tell you what those records are applicable to. So it says available in, but it could also say applicable to. And so if you want to see the records that are going to be available, you can select for Fall 1, Fall 2. This is a way of identifying if you've submitted data or not. If you have a larger district and you're submitting several files of the same file type, you could just do some auditing here by making sure that all your EOY3 files were submitted, because you'll see all the records that were available in that snapshot. So you have that. Don't worry about Spring 1. That's an old snapshot that's no longer running. It's been gone for several years. And then you can filter for job ID. So I'll just copy one here, for example. If you know a specific job ID, you could paste it in there and click Apply Filters. And so this is a great part of the demonstration, because if you are needing help troubleshooting errors, or there's something funky in your file and you can't quite identify it, when you submit your service ticket, job ID, if you copy the job ID and put it in your service request, we can filter it for specifically the file you're talking about. If you just tell me I have a student program file and give me the error number, but you have 4 different submissions, you're expecting me to go through every one of those submissions and find the error number and know the student you're talking about, right? So the job ID is a great identifier that can be used when you're communicating with the service desk staff. And so if you just ever click apply filters with no filter criteria, you will see the current files available during the past week, okay? Okay, so as we're sitting here looking at these files that have been submitted, and we can see there's an uploader from and an uploader through date, we have to make sure that we explain that these files do not stay here indefinitely, okay? There is a retention policy. And so you can go to the CALPADS user manual. You can open up a tab or a new window and type in CALPADS user manual. And the fastest way is to come to the search. And I typed in retention policy, but you can see the subject is job retention practice. And so here's an explanation of how long your files will be stored on the submission status screen. And so you can see that a file will be saved for 7 days if the job status is complete. If you leave it in ready for review status, you get 21 days. If it's in any other status than review or ready for review, there's 28 days. And if it's in partial post, it will stay there for 60 days because you've posted some records, but the file cannot be completed because you have some more work to do, right? And so we'll give you up to 60 days. So try to keep these timelines in mind when you want to go back and reference these jobs, because there's been instances where LEAs have wanted to reconcile their submission, their information, their data, and their files were automatically archived. They had no longer access or visibility of those submissions, okay? So here's a description of the job retention practices. So again, we're back on the view submission screen. We went through the filters. Now let's look down here at the results. So the job ID is assigned to your submission. It's random. It's submitted by CALPADS. Generally speaking, the most recent will have a larger number. You can copy and paste it and add it to a service request to help us identify where to look when you are requesting help. Then you have your submitted date and time. This will never change once it's assigned. This is good when you have record relationships and there's a sequence of submission. So if I'm submitting a student incident record, a sync, and a student results record, I have to first establish the incident and post it prior to submitting those results. And so I can see by the submission time of the results record measured against the file status time. So if I post a sync and the file status is after my submission time for my SIRS or my student results, I can understand why my results may have several errors. I would then resubmit that file. So auditing your file submission and sequencing the files is great to understand the submitted date and time and the status date and time. Okay, so we have the status here, and then we'll have eventually a revision date and time, okay? The CDS code is just related to your entity. This is the job name from the upload screen that you created. Then you have your file status. It identifies the record type within the file, the submitter, the different file status. This is an indication of the processing progress throughout the submission. Past records, rejected records. Now, a revision date and time. You can see this file has been posted and it has a revision date and time. Well, this is the test environment. Generally, in review wouldn't have a revision date and time. It would have to say posted or revision complete, and then you will have a revision date and time. And then you have available in and further actions, which could be exclude, okay? If I want to see the file records, if I want to go from ready for review to in review, I just need to click the view button. Okay, so without too much delay, we're on the view submission status screen. All right, and so let's go back so we can demonstrate how the status changes. Once we've gotten to this screen, we're in review. You can see that it says file status in review. And if we go back on the view submission screen, right? So we just clicked view, we went to the submission status screen, and now the file's in review. It's in the process of being reviewed. The other two files that we submitted are still in ready to review status because we have not looked at those records. So let's go back and then discuss the submission status screen. Okay, so we're on view submission details. And at the top, you have a summary of your submission. All right. You have the file status, which is important to take note of. You have your submitted date and time. So I know I submitted this file at 10:35 a.m. And the status date and time. This is reflective of the current status. So probably about 27 minutes after I submitted my file, I have now went to in review. So I went in review at the status. Once I post a record or exclude the records and the status changes again, this time will change. It's only available for your current status. It tells me how many different schools are in my file, the individual status of those schools, total records, how many passed, how many rejected. If I want to do some offline analysis, I can select a view submission error report. And so I'm going to open it in a different tab so you can see it. So as we wait for the error report, let's talk about some other features on the view submission detail screen. By default, we have a view of our fatal errors over here in the error summary, and then warnings if there are any. Fatal errors will prevent records from posting. Warnings do not. These errors may trigger on one record or multiple records. We see that we have 4 unique errors. That can be on one student record, or it could be on 4 different records, or any kind of combination. Now, when I click the tab for View Post Pass Records, I can see a school status summary, and I can post the records that passed. Typically, you would come in, post the records, go back and review these errors, make updates in your student information system, and then resubmit the file. When you resubmit the file, it may contain all 20 records, and what you're hoping to see is that the 17 that passed the first time and those that I posted, since it's the exact same record, it should pass again, and I have less than 3 rejected records, perhaps 2 or 1 or 0. Then I would post those records again, and I know that I'm good. When you submit a file and your total records are 20 and your past records are 20 with 0 errors, you can be assured that all the data from your student information system is in CALPADS exactly the way you want it. So let's come down here and you can see some of your past records, all right? So we'll save that. And then down here again, this is the test environment. These are all fictitious names if you can't tell. You can see you have your file errors and warnings. If you want to select specifically, you can see the results for specific errors. All right, and so that's the view submission details screen. Okay, so the error report has finished. And here you can see that it's ready to go. All I would need to do at this point is click View Report unless I wanted to select by SSID. And at that point, I am ready to review rejected records. But that's another module for another day. So that's the file upload process. You've submitted a file, you've seen the different statuses, you've seen the functionality. We went into how to review a file and some of the implications. In other modules, we'll cover troubleshooting when we are reviewing errors and warnings, also posting past records.